score down in like the games where they're like behind though. That makes sense though, because yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's 1,000% true, but it looked like it was. It certainly was the case last week when they were playing from behind. So that's what made me start to look into it, but I didn't see it.
I'm not shocked by hearing that, but it kind of fits with everything else I know about Jonnu Smith, which isn't a whole ton, to be honest.
Backup tight ends.
He got a big contract.
Hey, we got Bills Patriots on Thursday Night Football because it was so great last year. Why not do it again, this time without the 2 feet of snow? Pete McCarthy here on the Stokastic DFS channel along with Geoff Ulrich, and we are breaking this down for No House Advantage, their pick'em contest. We'll dive into if you want to play against the house as well. But Bills Patriots, AFC East affair. Everybody's pretty good in that division this year, Geoff. This is one of the better Thursday night matchups I think we've seen.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I mean, Patriots Bills always pretty solid matchup, regardless. Even when the records are bad, you know, and like even when the Patriots had like the Cam Newton era, we'll just call it, you know, like they played the Bills tough. So yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting a shootout, but I think this game is going to be interesting. It's all, you know, the Patriots always kind of make it interesting. They'll probably do some weird stuff on special teams or something like that, and you know, it's a little bit cooler weather, but you know, Bills are the Bills. See how Josh Allen's elbow is this week. Kind of expecting a closer game, not maybe a ton of points, but
the Patriots do something weird? That doesn't sound like old friend Bill Belichick. So we'll try to figure out what that weird thing might be, right? And if it'll help us in these No House Advantage contests. Hey, give us a like, subscribe, keep up all of our shows, our DFS offers, our giveaways that we have here on this channel. We really appreciate you guys being out there watching, subscribing. You can hit that notification button. That'll give you alerts when our shows go live. We'll be relatively busy tonight. It's not a crazy sports night. We've got one NBA game on the schedule, so we'll give you a full hour of content on that at 6 o'clock Eastern time, and then dive back into this Bills Patriots game starting up at 7 Eastern. So again, we're looking at this for No House Advantage. 3 contests to choose from if you play the Pick'em contest. One is a $15 entry, $10,000 to first place. You get 7 prop selections. You do it like a confidence pool: 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, all the way down to 1. You can also play a $5 pool that it gets $1,000 to first place. Generally a lot of overlay that we have seen. Keep an eye on that at, you know, what, 7:30 Eastern time. You kind of pop in there, see what you're looking at, maybe an 8 o'clock Eastern. Anyway, as far as the game goes tonight, Buffalo, 3.5-point favorite. The over-under is actually dropped to 43.5, whether or not a big factor, 30-something degrees. That's pretty normal for these guys. Injuries, I think, are interesting. I mean, Von Miller being out for Buffalo, does that affect how you view this Buffalo defense, particularly if they get the Patriots some 3rd and longs? All of a sudden, Mac Jones is whipping the ball around the yard against the Vikings last week.
Yeah, no, I mean, Mac Jones, I think, you know, I really like it's not, you know, he was pretty good the week before. Like, he looked okay. I know he didn't have the big game, but yeah, no, it's not, there's really not a ton of great news this week for the Bills. I mean, I think the biggest thing is maybe Josh Allen is like a week. His elbow might be a little bit better, but I mean, that could just be a lingering thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I had some great throws towards the end of last game, but wasn't great before that. Hasn't been throwing as much. The Bills have been running the ball more, and now, you know, maybe the Bills defense a little bit banged up, or just, you know, by that illness, so whatever you want to call it. It's interesting, man. I mean, I think it's going to be a close game. I really do. I know that the spread has gone from 5 down to 3.5, and some of that has been illness related, but I also think the Patriots, a little bit more efficient on offense, are starting to get, you know, some of their wide receivers a little bit more involved, and Jones is playing better. So yeah, I think Von Miller is something to take note of. And, you know, Mac Jones, basically a pocket quarterback. The more time he has, you know, again, these dudes who just sit back there, you give them time. Mac Jones, we know with Joe Burrow as well, like they can pick teams apart. So
yes,
interesting setup. Like I said, expecting a close game. And, you know, we'll get into these props here.
Yeah, Mac at a season high in yardage last week, was highly efficient against the Jets 2 weeks ago, though didn't lead them to any touchdowns. But that's kind of what you're looking at. 2 terrific defenses, by the way. We'll be getting into that as well. If you look at Football Outsiders, the Patriots are the #1 defense in the NFL based on their DVOA, and then Buffalo's number 4. So as much as we talk, and we'll talk about Josh Allen and company, both these defenses are really, really good. Maybe that's why we're seeing that over-under drop a little bit. So let's start with Mac Jones, since we kind of touched on him there. What we're looking at here, 232.5 passing yards, 1.5 passing touchdowns, half an interception. Look, he threw for 382 yards last week against the Minnesota Vikings. The Patriots were playing from behind in that game. How much do you take away from that? Do you expect Mac Jones to be flinging around and get to this over here? The simulations lean towards no.
Yeah, it's an interesting number. I mean, if this was a little bit lower, I'd definitely be pretty bullish on it. But, again, it's not even just last week. Like 246 against the Jets, they're moving the ball. I mean, the Patriots actively move the ball through the air. And I know the game was 3-3, but they got most of their yardage against New York through the air. They ran the ball 23 times in that game, something like that. And, they weren't really that effective. And now no Damian Harris this week, who was quite frankly, like the more effective runner than Stevenson, or has been at points this year. And, Stevenson going to be on the field, a great pass catching back. Mm-hmm. I kind of think that like a contrarian move here and taking, Mac Jones as an over target is okay. I get where the projection is coming from. Obviously, we're going up against a pretty stout defense, but you look at what the Bills have been doing on defense of late too. They have been allowing more big yardage games. They certainly allowed some yards last week, so it's an interesting spot. When you're approaching these kind of contests, you can certainly make what you call optimal lineups where, you're going to take a Mac Jones under because we kind of have it projected as an under, although it's not like a screaming under, but you might pair it with even like a Josh Allen under because those are both projected under. But, the trends with Mac Jones have been pretty strong. Patriots are throwing the ball a bit more. They're not running it as effectively as they have been in the past. And, the Bills have a pretty good rush defense too. So I kind of like starting with like Mac Jones over, like as a contrarian play. I do not mind that at all. And I think it kind of gives you a lot of options up and down the board to kind of sprinkle in as well. We got like Hunter Henry props. We have obviously Devontae Parker props, although I'm not super in love with Parker, but
not unless Myers doesn't play.
What's that?
If Jacoby Myers doesn't play, then
yes.
I think that's the big key for Devontae Parker. You could probably go opposite those two, one over, one under, depending if Myers plays. Devontae Parker had a big game last week. He had 4 catches, 80 yards, but he only had 4 targets, and that was with Myers out for a lot of the game. So, that isn't the norm for Parker, and he's got some big numbers.
Yeah, he's also just Devontae Parker, and he'll do his disappearing act against a good corner. So I think Hunter Henry, I hopefully if Myers plays, I'd much prefer going over on Myers. It was kind of unfortunate that he didn't last the game last week because he was in a really good spot. Yeah. Still popped up with a couple catches. So anyways, I think the Patriots passing game is kind of an interesting contrarian play to take some overs on. By no means would it be like I said, the optimal side necessarily, nor is it projecting like that, but they have moved the ball through the air a lot better and a lot more than people think over the last 2 weeks.
Contrarian over might be a term that you hear quite a few times over the course of the next 20 minutes here. I looked at this game, I looked at the defense, and I thought, all right, probably going to look at a lot of unders. When I started looking at the prop lines and no house advantage, typically are a little higher in these pickup contests. I was like, ooh, there's going to be a lot of unders. Then I went to our free projections over at Stokastic.com, and you can check those out. And it is like under, all the way across the board, and like high unders, like 77% chance unders here, which I don't recall seeing since like earlier in the season. So the expectation is this is a game where you could just take 7 unders, but I feel like if and when I do that, I'm going to tie with about 100 people at the top of the leaderboard. I got to find somewhere to get different.
It is possible, right? Like that, I think that, I don't think it's possible. I think you're correct. I think a lot of people will be looking to do the same thing. We got a low point total here. It's not super low, but it's low enough that, there's not enough, there's no narratives here that this is going to be a shootout. Josh Allen, throwing less, starting to go under more. The Bills have kind of been under machines this year as well. So yeah, you've got, we have big props on the star players. Again, like there's not even like an angle here for like, we like a low prop on Gabe Davis or something like that. Like the Bills players are all, really, really high up. I think that if I'm leaning under though, like I will take just unders across the board on the Bills. I mean, Diggs at 97.5.
That's like Cooper Kupp territory.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And we're asking him to do it with a quarterback who's, again, like the Bills over the last 3 games have rushed the ball 30 times per game, which is basically 4 higher than their season average. So, you factor that in. I think if there's a player that I'd be looking to go over on, it's probably Devin Singletary again, who is kind of doing what he did last year and making like that late season run where he was really good towards the end of last year. The Bills ran the ball a little bit more. Now they're running the ball even more, and they have more reason to as well. So I know that this prop on Singletary and like Cook's going to get involved, but he's looked really good. The snap count has still been like really steady. And even with Cook getting involved, he's gotten like a nice chunk of carries. I don't necessarily see that going down. So again, Bills players much more prone to go under on. If I was going over, I'd probably start thinking with Singletary, just the way they've been trending.
Yeah, look at Singletary the last couple of weeks. 14 carries, 72 yards against the Vikings. 18 carries, 86 yards 2 weeks ago. We have that. The projections have him as a strong underplay, but I think you do have to consider the recent trends here of what's going on with the Bills and Josh Allen's elbow. And by the way, Allen, if you look at the passing yardage, he has been under in 4 of his last, under this line that we have at 263.5. He's been under that number in 4 of 5 games. That's even before he hurt his elbow against the Jets. He went over that next game against the Vikings, but that passing offense has not been explosive. One guy that's kind of, I don't know if I want to say disappearing act because he pops up every once in a while. Where is Gabe Davis? He is like an all or nothing kind of guy where I feel like it's pretty easy to get under a pretty big receptions number here at 4.5 as part of this Bills passing game.
Yeah, he's almost been phased out, like not phased out, but like just with their switch, and it feels like maybe a little bit more conservative the last few weeks. Yeah, I mean, I don't know where that one's coming from. We obviously have him projected as like one of the strongest unders on the receptions. And, if you are thinking of like going over on him, I mean, or just playing for that one big play, maybe a really contrarian move, like go the yardage, because one thing we know about Gabe Davis, I mean, he could certainly go for like a 70-yard touchdown or a couple big 40-yard catches and then get there. But, he could also do that on 3 or 4 catches, right? So I think that the under on receptions, that's kind of a play like you can build around that. I mean, you can put that high up, you can sprinkle that in multiple lineups. That's kind of like a core play, and we kind of have that projected for it as well. We mentioned the Parker props. We have those projected as strong unders as well, but that hinges on, as you said, Jacoby Myers. And I feel better about the Davis unders than I do the Devonta Parker unders. So I think with the trends, the way these two teams are headed, Patriots seemingly passing more and the Bills actually passing less, you take the under on Davis over Parker. And yeah, you kind of go from there. So good one to point out for sure. I think that, and actually this is I almost forgot, but Isaiah McKenzie is on the board again. Sure. And he was a player I liked last week, and I forgot to put him in my DFS lineup, my single entry. And he ended up for Thanksgiving. Of course, he ended up like being a key player. Mm-hmm. And then, but he's popping up here again. Like we have him projected for the same receptions as Gabe Davis. I think that when you're thinking about Buffalo, if they're going a little bit more conservative, Isaiah McKenzie's a player that you would figure they get mixed in a little bit. People expected him to be a fairly integral part of this offense early on, but we still 6 games left or so. I wouldn't be shocked if he came on down the stretch, and he's kind of been doing that. So I do like the over on McKenzie as well, but yeah, definitely like the Gabe Davis fade. I think that's one of the strongest plays, if not my favorite play on the board as well.
McKenzie's a bit funky, right? Because last week we also saw him against the Lions. He goes for 6 catches, 96 yards. The week before that against Cleveland, he had 1 target. And I don't recall him getting hurt in that game. So, that's it's receivers, man. They're going to be a little bit all over the map. It's where you can get a little different if you want to sneak in and over somewhere in this game with a bunch of unders elsewhere. We're not asking for big catch numbers for McKenzie or reception yardage here, but he has been a little all over the map.
He has been. I mean, and the Bills, just their usage of the slot receivers sometimes all over the map. But we've seen Cole Beasley kind of he's done well against the Patriots in the past as well. The Patriots, I think going to do what they can usually to shut down Steph Diggs. That usually opens up the field a little bit too. Like I said, I think that the Bills will definitely look to take advantage of that with McKenzie. So
The other prop that jumped out at me, generally the quarterbacks are all kind of similar, right? The yardage changes, but it's going to be 1.5 touchdowns and half an interception. I think there was like a Sunday 2 months ago where Carson Wentz is at 1.5 interceptions, and it looked like the easy one to get under, and then he threw 2 against the Cowboys. The one that jumps out here is Josh Allen, 2.5 passing touchdowns. Now look, if Josh Allen, if it's last year's Josh Allen, you'd consider getting over on that. He hasn't thrown 3 touchdowns in a game since week 6. We talked about, everyone knows about the elbow situation with Allen. The projections have him at 1.6 passing touchdowns in this game. I mean, that's a pretty wild number. I don't think there are going to be any people over it. I certainly wouldn't touch it. How brave are you feeling going into this?
No, and again, like this kind of ties into the Gabe Davis thing. I mean, if they're going to be throwing less, it just means less shots downfield. And I think just like a little bit more of a conservative outlook. I think Josh Allen is also, the other thing is like, he's running either more or like the same. So you've got a team who's running the same rate, a quarterback who's still running, and they're mixing in more of their running backs. Like this is just going to be a really tough number to get over. I mean, you're going to need you're probably going to need a big play, like some kind of Gabe Davis score, because, sure, Josh Allen will probably throw 1. He might even throw 2. They get in the red zone and maybe they call a couple pass plays and get lucky there, but you're going to need that third. And that's going to have to come off a big play. Those just haven't been there as much. So, and Patriots are like a pretty good defense. I mean, they're not great. They're not the greatest at coverage, but they're certainly getting pressure. They certainly know Josh Allen very well and how to throw him off a little bit. So, this is a tough one, man. Like it's a good one to point out again. I think it kind of fits in nicely with like the Gabe Davis receptions, correlate a little bit at the very least. So yeah, under Josh Allen passing touchdowns, that one definitely sticks out. I mean, again, like you look at these quarterback props, like the 1.5 passing touchdowns for Mac Jones. Honestly, I'd probably be okay going under there too. I know I am bullish on Jones, but like 2 passing touchdowns against the Bills is a tough ask for any quarterback. So I think if you're going to go something on Mac Jones for an over for a contrarian play, just take the yards. If you want to get really contrarian, sure, you could go the touchdowns too, but that's like you're pushing into pretty big ass territory. There is such a thing as being too contrarian and just kind of like playing yourself out of a winning lineup too. So
sure. Well, I guess, you wouldn't take the over necessarily on 2.5 passing touchdowns on Allen, but you figure 75% of the field is going to have that under. I mean, I don't know. Is that a fair thought? So, sometimes you just go in a different direction. You could leave Josh Allen off the board completely, or, maybe you look at his interceptions, and the reason he hasn't thrown a lot of touchdowns of late is because he's been throwing all these picks in the red zone. So, if you're looking for 3 passing touchdowns and some interceptions, maybe Buffalo's playing from behind in your mind. He has thrown an interception in 4 of 5 games and 7 of 11 overall this year. So hunting for a Josh Allen pick is not exactly stretching the bank here.
It's not. And, again, like I think people are kind of onto this. Like they know Josh Allen's throwing INTs at a high rate. So this one is more, again, like INTs are also kind of, they're like, it's a one-off thing. Either he's going to have the one event or it's not. So it's probably a better contrarian move to go with that rather than like 3 passing touchdowns where we need 3 events in the red zone or just 3 passes that fall in the end zone. So if you are looking to get contrarian on Josh Allen and play for like a better Josh Allen game, going under on the interceptions is probably more intriguing to me. But, we do have this, we have both quarterbacks projected for 0.8 interceptions, which is like it's a decent like lean towards the over. We've definitely seen much stronger projections than that, but Allen being what he is, he's obviously a bit of a gambler, knows he has that big arm, and just the Patriots being at home here, having seen him numerous times. Again, like I almost just feel like making a contrarian argument for these Josh Allen props is tough, as you can probably tell by the way I'm talking about it. So I almost just like eating the chalk, taking the unders on them, maybe even taking over interception as well. And really looking at the Patriots side of the ball to maybe like, take some overs on it. Because again, they have lower props and Mac Jones has been, I don't want to say the better quarterback, but he's certainly been like a very efficient passer in the last couple starts.
Sure. And we're talking, of course, about no house advantage in this Thursday night game between the Bills and the Patriots. If you're unfamiliar with no house advantage, there's two ways to play. We're discussing to this point the pick'em contest where you're playing against other people. So you want to rack up the most points, have the most correct selections, going over or under various statistics, and basically props. So if you get that done, boom, you're at the top of the leaderboard. But there is a little strategy to try to be the only one at the top of the leaderboard. So you can take home the full was it $5,000 in that top? I think it's $10,000 for the NFL in that top contest. So that's part of the strategy, a little contrarian, a little game theory that becomes a part of this. You can also just straight up play against the house. You get 5 out of 5, you get up to 21 times your money. So check that out. You could put together some lineups that correlate, and we'll throw a couple of those at you in just a little bit. The one aspect we haven't talked about much is the running game. You talked about Devin Singletary being a guy you like on the over. Ramondre Stevenson, I think you have to like him. I think one of my strategies is probably going to be to go under on the passing game across the board and then go over on Ramondre Stevenson, 59.5 rushing yards. No Damian Harris. Now, they were the only running backs for New England to have any carries last week. New England got away from the running game. It wasn't like there was a lot of action for either of them. But New England certainly capable of grinding it out. We saw them do it in the snow, of course, last year against Buffalo. How do you like Stevenson's line and the way it sets up?
Yeah, I mean, this is the one over that I think everyone will be on. Like, if there's one prop where I think just everyone in the field is going to be on the same side, it's going to be Ramondre Stevenson over. Everyone knows Harris is out. He's obviously a player that has gotten attention, through a couple big runs. I think most people, well, he'll throw in like a 30-yard run and we'll just get to this easily. And again, it's a low total. I mean, no house advantage has basically said, yeah, like take the under, see what happens, it's 59.5 here. So, but again, I come back to it, man. I mean, Stevenson has not been getting a ton of carries. The Patriots just haven't been running the ball with the same kind of vigor that they have in the past. So as much as this prop projects to be an over and it's scary, I think that if you're going to take some overs with Mac Jones, you mix in an under on Ramondre Stevenson and really get over on the field. I think this is the spot I'd personally feel more comfortable taking a contrarian stance on. I absolutely understand if you're going to play the over, it doesn't mean you have to play the under. That's not the only way to get leverage on the field. If you are going to play the over on Stevenson, I think that your next route would be to start thinking about being contrarian with like a Josh Allen over or the Bills receivers overs. But as I mentioned, we're not really in love with that either. So I think the greatest leverage that you can get on the spot is taking an under on Ramondre Stevenson, which is super interesting. The Bills rush defense also still, they had a little bit of lull in there where they had a couple big plays like to Dalvin Cook and Aaron Jones, but they've been a tough team to run on, man. I mean, Jamal Williams barely got over on 18 carries last week. They held the Browns running backs to 51 yards combined. So it has not been easy going here for RBs going up against the Bills. It's definitely doable. It's a small total, but it's definitely doable for Stevenson to go under here. It's going to be, again, I see this prop potentially, this one just kind of sets this whole slate. Like if he hits, most of the field gets through, they get a big play. And then it comes down to, well, okay, did you mix it in with the Bills overs and did that hit? Or is it just like an optimal night where everything's going under and we're just kind of sharing the top prize? But if this under hits, then it's kind of just chaos, because all the small percentage of lineups that have that Stevenson under and maybe even high up, those are going to be the ones that are really thriving. So.
And we talked about at the top, right, that Bill Belichick factor. We've never seen Bill Belichick surprise us with running back usage, right?
Oh, yeah, no.
Some guy
Jonas
comes up
Gray,
off the practice squad.
Game, anyone?
Yeah, I mean, somebody could pop up at any moment there. But I will say, Bill Belichick, I've never heard him gush about a player like he gushes about Ramondre Stevenson. Yeah. So we'll see what kind of role he plays. But look, if you want to get contrarian, let's say in the pick'em contest, you could try to hedge a little bit. You could play let's say versus the house. The number there in Stevenson isn't all that different. It's 63.5. So if you're going to fade him in one contest, you could throw together a prop playing against the house that might help you out the other way. There's a couple of things that you could do. I guess versus the house, I mean, one prop I'll throw out at you because we don't have it in the pick'em contest is Josh Allen rushing yards. The idea is that Allen isn't supposed to run as much. Hasn't really stopped him. 45.5 being the rushing yardage line for Allen tonight.
Yeah, no, and I don't mind it. I mean, I don't mind the over, to be honest. You look at what the Patriots have done too, against just quarterbacks in general, in terms of just allowing rush yards. Lamar Jackson got there for a big game, Fields, but also, like Zach Wilson, Sam Ehlinger going for well over 25 yards in both of those guys. So they've been allowing quarterbacks to get out of the backfield. And again, like Josh Allen, okay, the Bills want him to take care of himself. Maybe they're going to call a few more runs. You can't stop Josh Allen from running the ball. Like, he's on the field. He is a competitor. That's just what he's going to do. And that's kind of what he's been doing. 10 rushes against Detroit in a game where they needed him to do some stuff late in the game. Minnesota, took off for 84 yards. If anything, like, I really like the over here. I mean, I think that you're going to see Josh Allen, realize, well, okay, I'm going to do what I can do. And if you're not going to call big plays, or we're going to, revert to like a little bit more conservative offense, I'm taking off, man. Like I'm going to go. And that's kind of what he's been doing. So it's a guy who's just, I think, very big competitor. He's going to find a way, and he can do it with his legs. And, he
can't help himself.
No, he can't. And the Patriots, I think it's just a weakness of their defense. It's kind of always been under Belichick. Like, if you go back in history too, they don't, it's not that they don't care about the quarterback running, but it's kind of just something that they just always leave open. It's like, okay, like, if the quarterback's going to run against us, fine, like they'll get yards. But, and I think that, maybe I'm just remembering this as like making this up in my mind, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this. Certainly has been the case this year at the very least. So I like the over on Josh Allen rush yards.
And just to tie that back to the contest, that's that like hidden yardage, right? Where if you are going to go under on everything, well, maybe Josh Allen runs for 80 yards, and that's a big part of the Bills offense. That's not one of the props as far as no house advantage goes. So you're wondering, well, somebody's got to get yards here. Sometimes it's things that just aren't on these, these props. Certainly running backs catching the ball out of the backfield. Stevenson's capable of doing that. We don't have a line. We don't have a number for that in the pick'em contest. Interesting number from Danny. Question from Danny in the chat that I want to throw at you before we're done here. Number one, no house advantage player. Is there anyone that you think does it better than anybody else on no house advantage that you tend to notice at the top of the leaderboard, maybe that, maybe you've strategized with? You think they have a good idea of what they're doing?
I mean, I would definitely look, just, if you're interested in that, I mean, hit up the Stokastic guys. Again, like, no house advantage, limited number of states are available in, but most of the guys on Stokastic, know what they're talking about. So I don't have a specific name, unfortunately, to throw out, or like usernames, but if you watch the Twitter feed as well on just Stokastic, I mean, we're usually tweeting out some good screenshots of players too. So always a chance to get involved, and you can always join the Discord at Stokastic as well, and get involved in the community that way. So that's probably the best way to go about it. Unfortunately, though, I don't have any screen names written down.
That Discord is great though. And if you're betting props at sports books and you're getting some good tips, you're getting the latest breaking news, you could try to take advantage of that in those spots where you are on it before maybe some of these books are. So be sure to check that out. And it's fun there. I'll tell you that. I mean, there's a lot of people cheering each other on and sweating the games together. It gives you a little bit of that community feel. So you can check that out, our Stokastic Discord. We also have Stokastic, again, free projections for no house advantage. And some of this is coming soon. We're going to give you projections to play against the house as well, and simplify that for you. So certainly looking forward to seeing that over at stokastic.com as well. Still a lot to come. We'll get back into this Thursday night game at 7 Eastern with NFL Showdown live before lock. We got an NBA live before lock coming up at 6 Eastern for the one game on the NBA schedule tonight. So we really get to lock in on some single game action in the NBA as well as the NFL tonight. But Geoff, fun going through it with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think this will be a good game, close at the very least, and be interesting to see where some of these break down. I mean, like I said, I think that Stevenson one will be making or breaking a lot of people tonight.
Well, hopefully, I think I want it to make me as of now, but we'll see. I I always get like a different perspective. I'm like always very chalky. I feel like when I come into the show and I'm like, oh, these are all the things I like. And then you're like, yeah, so does everybody else.
Being contrarian sounds fine until, like Stevenson gets like 50 yards on his first drive. And then like the entire field is just miles in front of you.
It doesn't work until it does, right? Like that Saints-Cardinals game, I think it was a Monday night game. I was like, oh, there's not going to be any points in this game. Taysom Hill run the ball or something. And then the winning lineup was by himself, 7 overs. So when you do the contrarian play and it hits, you cash in pretty nicely. But best of luck to everyone tonight. Geoff, pleasure. I'm Pete. Later, guys.